So y'all sick of looking at that leftover turkey, huh? It's okay. Come on in the kitchen with me, honey, because I'm going to show you how to turn them leftovers into some turkey and dumplings. Let's go.
Whipping up all of your favorite recipes.
Simply Food.
You should know by now that you're in for a treat.
Simply Food.
There's no other channel where you'd rather be.
Simply Food.
Seafood, pasta, cakes, and pies. Sing and laugh and even cry. Like and share and hit subscribe. Simply Food by TY.
All right, y'all, so let's get into these ingredients. So we're going to start off with a can of cream of mushroom soup, a family-sized can of cream of chicken, basil leaves, onion powder, the Chef Magic's poultry seasoning, garlic powder, some coarse kosher salt, black peppercorn, the Knorr chicken flavor bouillon, the Better Than Bouillon seasoned vegetable base, and some garlic paste. So let's move over to our stock pot. So like I said, I'm going to be using leftover turkey from Thanksgiving. And these are actually, this is the turkey from the smoked turkey recipe video that I did. And I'll make sure I post that link up above. You can click on that link. But to this pot, I'm adding in 2 of the legs, a few stalks of celery, some carrots, and a half of a sweet onion. I'm going to fill this up so that it's about 2 to 3 inches above the contents of the pan. Put that on the stove pot, bring that up to a raging boil. We'll come back to that in a few moments. So let's talk about the veggies. So I'm going to be using carrots, celery, and onion in this recipe. Now you're going to end up with 1.5 cups of each of those. 1.5 cups of the carrots, celery, and onion. And you want to make sure that you're chopping these all down to be roughly about the same size. Doesn't have to be a mince, but you don't want it to be too chunky. Now, I wanted to go over a few preliminary things just, to put this out there. When making turkey and dumplings, chicken and dumplings, whatever the case is, it is very difficult to give exact measurements in what you should do to determine what the flavor profile should be. And the reason why I say that is because it really will depend on what type of chicken you are working with. Whether you're working with a rotisserie chicken or a chicken you made from home, whether you're making from a turkey that was kind of bland around Thanksgiving time, okay? Or a turkey that might have been overly salted around Thanksgiving time. You get where I'm going with this? So it really is going to depend on what you are working with as far as your protein to start off with. So what I'm trying to get at is it is going to be important for you to make sure that you pay attention to the ingredients that I'm using in this recipe, but use your own discernment to decide how much of each of those seasonings you want to add. All in all, get you a spoon, honey, and make sure that you are tasting it along the way. Don't go crazy with too much salt in the beginning if you already know that your stuff was salty to begin with, or vice versa. If you know your food was kind of bland, then you might have to add in way more seasonings than what I did. Okay, let's move on. So like I said, I have 1.5 cups of both the celery, the onion, and the carrots. Now, as I stated, I'm going to be using the leftover turkey from my smoked turkey recipe. But first things first, I allowed this to kind of unthaw a bit. And now I'm removing all of the skin and just making sure that I don't have any bones or anything like that in there. I'm going to give it a rough chop, and then I'm going to go ahead and set that to the side. Now, as I said, I only ended up using 1.5 cups of each of those vegetables, but any of it that was left over that got chopped up, honey, I threw that right into that pot. That ain't nothing but extra flavor. Once everything boils down, as you can see, that pot's looking flavorful already. Give it a taste, see how much additional salt and pepper you need, add that in it, run it through a strainer, and then go ahead and sit your broth to the side until it's time for us to use it. Remember, don't go too crazy with adding in too much salt to begin with. Now, in our pot, I'm going to be adding in equal parts 2 tablespoons of our olive oil, as well as 2 tablespoons of our ghee clarified butter. If you don't have ghee, of course, you can use regular unsalted butter. That is completely fine. Once that melts down, we're going to go ahead and start to add in all of our delicious veggies. And we're just going to break those down until they become kind of translucent. At this stage, once again, you can add in a pinch of your kosher salt as well as your black peppercorns. be mindful. Once again, you're adding in salt along the way. And if you've been a member of my channel for quite some time, you guys know what I always say. It is far easier to add salt to the dish than it is to take away. Because once a dish is oversalted, sadly, there really isn't much that you can do to kind of really fix it, okay? So just be mindful of that. As I said, I'm going in with some of that black peppercorn, and then I'm also going to go in with a little bit of the kosher salt as well. Once this becomes, nice and translucent, then I'm going to go ahead and go in and add in that garlic paste. Now, I personally am not a fan of chunks of garlic in my turkey and dumplings, but I like the flavor of the garlic. So that's the reason why I choose to use the paste versus using the actual garlic itself. Now, if you don't mind chunks of garlic, honey, you do you, and you go ahead and add it in. That is completely up to you. That also goes the same with the veggies. You can add in whatever vegetables in this that you would like. But, if you're going to add in stuff like peas and corn and all that type of stuff, just make sure that it's frozen, not fresh, so that it doesn't turn out to be mush. Okay, so I've just added in about 1 tablespoon of that garlic paste. I'm going to give that a mix around and let that get fully incorporated. Now that I have that nicely mixed in just the way I want it, I'm going to go in with 1/4 of a cup of my all-purpose flour. Now, this is going to help thicken it up our stock a little bit later on down the line. You want to make sure that you allow this to cook off for roughly about 1 to 2 minutes just to get that raw flour taste. Be mindful that your pan is not set up too high so that you do not burn anything, okay? At no point really in this recipe should any of this really come up to a raging boil. If anything, it should be at about a medium to low simmer because you don't want this to boil because it is going to get very thick as we progress, okay? So as I said, I ran the contents of my broth through a strainer, so I ended up with some beautiful broth. I'm going to start off with adding in the first 3 cups. Then I'm going to give it a mix around. The reason why you don't want to pour in all of your liquid to begin with is because you want to make sure that all of this becomes nice and smooth. It's easier to kind of get rid of any clumps or lumps at this stage when there's only 3 cups versus if you just go and pour in all 6 cups of liquid to begin with. Plus, you may not need all 3, okay? So I'm going to go in and add in my additional 2 cups. So right now we've added in 5 cups, and now I'm adding in my smoked turkey meat. Now, as you can see, these are actually pretty big chunks, and I'm okay with that. I want this to be a nice hearty meal. As you continue to mix it around and it sits and it simmers and it warms up, a lot of it will naturally shred up on its own, but if I end up with big chunks, I'm also completely okay with that as well. I'm going to give this a mix around, let that heat through. Once again, allow this to come up to a nice simmer. Now that that's done, then I'm going to go ahead and add in my seasoning. I'm adding in a 1/2 teaspoon of the garlic powder, the onion powder, the basil, the chicken flavoring, as well as the chicken poultry seasoning, okay? A 1/2 teaspoon of all of the seasonings except for the Better Than Bouillon seasoned vegetable paste. I added in a 1/2 tablespoon of that. That's going to give this a great boost of flavor. Give that a mix around and allow that to come up to a simmer as well. Now, if you aren't a person that wants to use the cream of chicken or the cream of mushroom, you can omit those if you would like and just add in some heavy cream. To me, that's going to make it taste completely different, so I can't really guide you on what to do past that point should you choose to not use the cans of soup. So you're going to be on your own if you choose to make a bunch of different modifications, honey, okay? I tried to be very clear in my instructions so that you guys can follow along with me. So I'm going ahead now and I'm adding in the full contents of the cream of mushroom as well as the cream of chicken. You want to go ahead and now bring this pan back up to a simmer until this becomes nice and smooth. Now, for some of you, you might think, wow, that's a lot of cream of mushroom. That's a lot of cream of chicken. This is going to be way too thick. I promise you it's not. This is actually the perfect consistency, in my opinion, for a dumpling. It should not be too thin and it should not be too thick. It should be just right. So once we bring this up to a light simmer, which it doesn't really look like it on here, but this is a light simmer, we can now start to add in our dumplings. Now, I thought that I showed the box of the dumplings that I use, but I guess I didn't. So I'm going to try to find a picture to put up on the screen at some point in time. I prefer to use flat dumplings over homemade dumplings. I do not like homemade big doughy dumplings. That's just not for me. I prefer the frozen flat ones. I use the brand Annie's. So as you can see, I'm adding them in one by one, and I'm only adding in a few at a time. I'm trying to make sure that the pan is not overcrowded. Once I have them in the pan, I allow them to cook for maybe about 1 to 2 minutes, and then I repeat the process and I continue to add them in. You want to make sure that you do not throw them in all at once, or they're just going to lump up and clump up, and you do not want that. Once you add in your dumplings, this dish is essentially done. And also be mindful, it's also going to naturally thicken up a little bit more as it goes along. So I'm just going to repeat this process. Add in my dumplings. This is around the time when you would go in, taste it, see if you need any additional seasonings, add in that additional 1/6 cup of broth if you need it, only if you need it. And just give it a mix around. You guys, once that comes back up to a simmer, this dish is essentially done. And you'd have made yourself a pot of bomb turkey and dumplings. You hear me? This is one of my favorite go-to dishes, and it's absolutely delicious, okay? Look, thank you guys so much for tuning into my channel today. My name is Tobias Young, honey. Hit that subscribe button. Make sure that you hit that bell to be notified so that you are fully aware of when I post videos down the line. Thank you guys so much for tuning in today. You babies stay cute and take care. Bye, guys. I hope y'all enjoy this recipe, because let me tell you something. It is absolutely bomb, okay? Bye.
Slaying in the kitchen.
Simply Food by TY.
We hope that you enjoyed it.
Simply Food by TY. If you haven't took the time, make sure you subscribe. Thanks for watching. Thanks for watching. Thanks for watching Simply Food.